Did you know 1 in 5 children and 1 in 10 adults suffer from eczema? Asthma is the leading cause of long-term illness in children, with around 1 in 11 diagnosed. Over 262 million people suffer from asthma globally, causing an estimated 455,000 deaths in 2019 alone. Now, I'd like you to have a think. Think back to when you were a child. How many of you were teased? Do you remember the staring, pointing, or nasty comments? I was always told sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you. But that's a whole lot easier said than done, isn't it? When I was young, I had terrible eczema. My feet cracked so badly, sometimes I thought my toes were going to fall off. I had rashes on my arms, on my legs, and I hated it. It was embarrassing. Why me? It wasn't my fault. Not only did they look awful, they hurt so much too. There were many nights when I woke up scratching. In the morning, there would be blood all over the sheets. For me, heat made it worse. In the summertime, we used to have to go swimming for school every day for PE. Some days, I just couldn't bear it, so I'd ask my mum to write me a note. It wasn't just because the eczema hurt, it was because the night before, my feet had been covered in a red paint, which stung like nothing else. Coal tar applied, and then they'd get wrapped up. The problem was the red paint just didn't come off. It looked like someone had dipped my feet in beetroot. Now, obviously, there's no hiding your feet when you go swimming, and everyone looks at you while you're sitting there waiting for your swimming lesson. Even when you're in the pool and kicking, you could see my bright red feet. To this day, when I smell Sudocrem, it brings back these memories. We tried everything to control my eczema: steroid creams, paints, lotions, different diets, cotton socks, leather shoes, but nothing seemed to work. It did get a little bit better as I got older, but it was always there. When I got to the age of having a boyfriend, it was really embarrassing and I was very self-conscious. If I was on the beach or at the pool with my legs in the sun and they got too hot, all of a sudden they would start getting itchy, big whelps would appear, and that was it. Time to get out of here. The itching was awful. It's so hard not to itch. And once you start, the feeling is incredible. It makes you want to keep itching and scraping. There is no other feeling quite like it. It would feel so good at the time. I'd often draw lots of blood, leave lines and weeping wounds all over my... I knew I had to stop scratching. So I tried slapping, cold water, scorching water, anything, but nothing seemed to work for me for more than a couple of seconds. There was one small bonus. I was fortunate. I didn't get much on my face. Now, one bonus with eczema is that around 30% of sufferers are likely to get asthma too. Yep, that was me. Have you ever been running around with friends, playing a sport or doing some exercise and had to stop because you can't breathe? Your chest is tight, you're wheezing. You start thinking, what if I can't breathe? What if no one can help? You're scared. You don't have your inhaler as you left it at home. What am I going to do? Panic sets in and your breathing gets worse. As I was already quite self-conscious about my appearance, I found it quite embarrassing. I hated getting my inhaler out and using it in front of people. I know I shouldn't have, because again, it wasn't my fault. I also hated that it might make me look weak. I'm quite competitive when it comes to sport, and taking an inhaler felt like cheating or a weakness to me. When you're young, I guess you don't always correlate something physical having an impact on your mental health. But looking back, I can see that both eczema and asthma had a negative effect on how I felt emotionally. I also ended up in quite a dark place at times in my late teens. A close friend of mine from school committed suicide, as well as my great uncle and a cousin. I don't think back then we had the tools or the knowledge to deal with this type of thing. Mental health really wasn't much of a thing. But skip forward 20 years and halfway around the world. Yes, I'm from New Zealand if you hadn't already guessed. And now you'll find me in a much better place. That isn't to say I haven't had other issues in that time. Probably one of the most significant events, which has actually taken a few years to work through, was when my youngest son had a febrile seizure in France, and I can't speak French, and I had to resuscitate him twice. I think this was the beginning of change for me. I got quite ill through stress on a couple of occasions, which is part of what has led me to where I am now. I need another hour or two to cover those topics, so let's save that one for another day. So as I said, originally from New Zealand, but since moving to England, I started suffering from lung infections every winter. If you've ever had a lung infection, it's not fun. It just seems to drag on and on. I also discovered it's much worse if you've had children. All that coughing doesn't do much good for the pelvic floor. The infections always seem to hang around for ages. I could never shake them off. I'd end up going for x-rays. Doctors would say there's nothing there. Sometimes I might even get antibiotics, but generally they just said time would sort it out. 2 months down the line, I might start getting back into exercise again because I could breathe without coughing fits. It really does make an impact on your life when you can't breathe. Breath is life. Do you know you've probably taken about 100 breaths while I've been talking so far and you didn't even realize you were doing it? Our lungs are pretty awesome. So now to skip a few more chapters, I was working in the wellness industry, designing and installing amazing heat experiences and thermal rooms for high-end residential properties, hotels and spas. I'd been asked to work on a few salt rooms and halotherapy rooms. And whilst I'd tried saunas and steam rooms, ice caves and razzles, I'd never really tried halotherapy. So I decided to set up a test room where I was working. I always believe you need to try before you buy. And even though I wasn't buying one yet, I wanted to ensure I was providing something of benefit. So with the room installed, I started using it 2 to 3 times a week. After about 3 weeks, I realized that I hadn't reached for my inhaler at all. I couldn't believe it, but it was the only thing that I had changed. I'd been using those brown inhalers morning and night and had the blue one to use during the day. I've even got some lying around the house, probably all out of date by now. So I did more research on halotherapy to understand the other benefits that there could be. I read it helping eczema. To be honest, I was pretty skeptical, but hey, it worked for my asthma. And when I looked a bit more closely at my hands, I noticed they were nowhere near as bad as they had been. So I started exposing areas of eczema while using the room. A few more weeks later, I noticed I wasn't having to reach for some of my creams anymore. It's now been 4 years and I've not touched a steroid cream in that time. I really wish I'd come across halotherapy when I was a child, but I doubt it was even a thing in New Zealand then. Fortunately, I've been lucky enough to come across it now. If only it had been so simple when I was young. So when I discovered that halotherapy could help, I was so excited. With 1 in 5 children suffering from eczema, I thought that if I can just make a difference to 1 child and stop them having to go through what I did, I'd feel like it was worth it. I also haven't had a lung infection since using halotherapy regularly. It's the only thing I can put it down to. Can you see now why I might be just a little bit passionate about halotherapy? Well, not even just a little bit, a whole lot, to be honest. So with these results, I decided to set up the UK Halotherapy Network to try and help share the benefits and educate others of the benefits of halotherapy. I also wanted to create a central place where you can locate your closest halotherapy provider or dry salt room and encourage others to set up rooms too. I didn't just stop there though. I decided that I wanted to build a salt room for our family to use. It made sense to me. If it made me that much healthier, then imagine if I could keep my family healthy too. We probably go in once or twice a week together, more if we feel a cold or something coming on. It's also a great place to relax. Halotherapy creates loads of negative ions, which help counteract all those positive ions created by electromagnetic radiation from computers, TV screens, phones, etc. So it's really great for our mental health, of which I need to keep on top of too. I also run a small room to provide halotherapy for my local community and love seeing the results I get. It was in September last year when an opportunity came about, which led me to becoming the executive director of the WHA. It certainly wasn't something I had planned, but I hope my passion and determination to share the benefits of halotherapy across the globe will go a long way, so together we can help as many people as possible. I have to say that I truly believe that salt has saved me. I hope that you can take one thing away from our symposium this year, and I hope it is the power of connection. Please do listen on to all our wonderful speakers and see just how connection can help support you and help you make a difference. Thank you for joining me here today. I do hope you enjoy what is in store for the rest of the day and tomorrow. Thank you.